there's a conscious aspect to the poem that abides in time. Telling stories happen in time. One thing follows another, usually chronological, even if they're edited in a way that splits up time. Time is still there because it's the feeling of something passing or something returning. Form is an imposition that we create for the poem, a container that is our intention for it, and it happens very consciously. We choose a form typically and then write the poem within the constraints of that form. So it's something that comes out of the conscious mind. And then this whole tradition of clear speech in poetry of the last 100 years, Frost, well, I guess starting with Wordsworth in the early 1800s. Poetry that was not supposed to be ennobled and ornate in its speech, but speech for the everyday person. So that quality of clear speech that brings out a feeling of the everyday in the poem, that's also fixed in time. And these are conscious choices that we make for the poem in our diction, in the stories that we tell, and in the containers that we fill them with. On the other side, you have these things that happen while you're writing. Grace, I'm sure you know this too, that you've experienced this, that the sounds of words are like association in therapy. It's very unconscious. Not when we're trying to alliterate because we think that sounds good in a poem, but I mean, we don't know that it's happening. It's just that the words are having a conversation of their own at some unconscious level. And an image is to narrative as a photograph is to a movie. An image is totally in eternity. It's something that is frozen and not in time at all. It's exactly the way it is, and it will never change. And then this feeling of mystery in a poem, which is very hard for me to define, but that also comes from the unconscious. The questions that you're asking me, Grace, really are all about the mystery, the revelations of the poem, or what the poem hides from us. There's a letter that Rilke wrote his wife Clara about Van Gogh, and he's talking about how Van Gogh shows no preferences in his paintings. It's like he's talking about Van Gogh as a stoic, saying he's not saying that the people in the field are powerful, and he's not saying that the people in the field are weak. He's just showing us the people in the field. It's amazing, Clara. And then he says at the end of that letter, he shows us nothing. He has it. And I think that's the mystery in the poem. It's what we have and what we don't tell anyone, what we might not even know that we know. And it's hidden in the poem like the fruit that hasn't yet emerged. And the longer we sit with that poem, like Robert Frost, the Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, the longer I sit with that poem, or Emily Dickinson, there's a certain slant of light. The blossoms fall away, and this mystery emerges that is mine. What's beyond those woods? You know, what is that slant of light? That's the unanswerable question that she hid from us. She doesn't show me. She has it, you know? And then it's like, come get it, David, she's saying to me. And I have to dive in there and I have to go get it. These are all, these all abide in the unconscious. And I think that if the poem is really good, it sits right here. It sits right here between time and eternity, right where all the parts cross so that it's hard to tell any one part from another part. The best poems are right there in the middle. I also think that, and this might be a ridiculous idea to some critics, but I think this, that there is a line of poets that come from the time side, like Wordsworth and Frost, and there is a line of poets that come from the eternity side, like Coleridge and Rimbaud and Dickinson and Simic, the poets that have influenced me the most. So I think I'm drawn to these questions quite a bit because I'm a chthonic poet. I like the underworld more than purgatory and paradise.
Not more than paradise.
No, you're right. You're right. Maybe if you dig deep enough underground, you'll end up in paradise on the other side.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, David,
yes,
it's
Kendra.
Kendra. Um, since we're just want something I wanted to say about the weekly meditation. I've really noticed the effects of it, and how it's accumulated in my mind, becoming more like the bottom of the tree,
Mm-hmm.
like less like all the emotional
Yeah.
stuff blowing in the wind. And one thing I love is the way, since I've taught for so many years and know many of the poems and have taught many of the poems, but when you read it, it's like Grace said, it's like hearing it for the first time. But I'm hearing it from my older self, myself that has always known this poem, always. And I have this experience of like falling through my entire poetic life, when you read it. And then because you read it, what, 3 times, or at least 3 times, and each time is
At least three.
deeper and deeper. And I'm sure, that what you're doing in me is connecting me to myself, and in ways that I maybe had abandoned myself. Who knows? I haven't really thought about it more deeply than that, but it's connecting me to myself. And I think the effects have been really profound for me.
Andrew, thank you. They have for me too. I've had the same experience you're describing. It's really the poems, doing the work. I love talking about them, and I think that I've learned more because I've given myself the freedom to talk about them in ways that maybe you're not going to find in other sources. But the poems are themselves the little seeds of mindfulness and seeds of understanding and seeds of love. And just saying them out loud has had a profound effect on me.
Mm.
And I've also chosen short poems because I think it's wonderful to have them and to be able to hold them in our brains and even memorize a few of them, so that you can carry them with you, like those blossoms that open on their own in the dark.